you did not find this message. This message found you. Somewhere in the quiet space between your thoughts and the noise of everything life has demanded of you, something stirred. Something older than your circumstances, deeper than your doubts, and stronger than every reason you have been given to give up. And now you are here, listening. And that is not a coincidence. That is a calling making itself known. So, before anything else, let me ask you something that I need you to sit with for a moment. When was the last time you looked at your own life and truly asked yourself, why has this been so hard for me when I have tried so hard to do what is right? When was the last time you wondered why the road that was supposed to get easier kept getting longer? Why the doors that should have opened for someone with your heart, your faith, your sacrifice, stayed shut just a little longer than seemed fair? When was the last time you lay awake in the dark and whispered to whatever you believed was listening, is any of this going somewhere? Is there a point to all of this pain? Those are not questions of weakness. Those are the questions of someone whose soul is awake. Those are the questions that only rise in a person who was built for something more than what they are currently living. Ordinary people do not ask those questions with that kind of ache behind them. People who were never meant for greatness do not feel that specific longing in their chest, that pull toward a life that feels just out of reach but somehow undeniably real. You feel it because it is real. You ask because the answer exists, and the answer is this: you were not built for ordinary, you were chosen. Think about the life you have lived so far. Think about every storm that passed through your world and did not destroy you, even when it should have. Think about every relationship that broke, every plan that collapsed, every morning you woke up and had to convince yourself to keep going. Think about the moments when you had every reason to walk away from your faith, from your values, from your sense of purpose, and yet something inside you held on. Something that did not belong to you alone kept you standing. You need to understand what that something is, because it has a name, and it has been working in your life since before you had the words to describe it. That something is divine design. You are not a product of chance. You are not a person who simply wandered into a hard life and is hoping to wander out of it. You are someone who was known before you were formed, called before you understood the language of calling, and set apart before the world had a chance to label you ordinary. And the reason so much of your journey has felt like a test is because it has been one, a real one, a deep one, the kind that does not come to destroy you but to define you, the kind that heaven does not assign to people who cannot carry it. Let me ask you something else. Have you ever noticed that the pressure in your life does not feel random? Have you ever looked at the pattern of what you have faced and sensed that it was too specific, too targeted, too intentional to be accidental? The losses that hit the exact places where your confidence lived. The delays that came right when your momentum was building. The betrayals that came from the people you trusted most. Does that not tell you something? Accidents do not have that kind of precision. Opposition that specific has a source, and more importantly, it has a reason. And the reason is that something in you is worth opposing. Something in you is worth the effort of the enemy. You do not send armies against empty land. You send them against territory that matters. You matter. Your calling matters. The life that is waiting on the other side of this season matters more than you have been allowed to feel in the middle of your struggle. And right now, heaven is not looking at what you have lost. Heaven is looking at what you have held on to. Heaven is looking at the faith that survived the fire, the hope that outlasted the humiliation, the love that kept moving even when it was not returned. And heaven is saying, this one passed, this one held, this one is ready. There is a word that has been spoken over your life that you may not have heard clearly yet. It is not a word of defeat. It is not a word of delay. It is a word of appointment. It is a declaration that what was promised over you is still in motion. That the silence you have been living in was not God's absence but God's preparation. And that what is coming for you was worth every single moment of what you have been through to get here. The scripture says it with a clarity that should settle something deep inside you today. Jeremiah chapter 29 verse 11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. That verse was not written for people who had easy lives. It was written for people in exile. For people who looked around at their circumstances and could not reconcile what they were promised with what they were living. It was written for people exactly like you, in a season exactly like this, with a heart that has held on exactly as long as yours has. And it is speaking directly to you right now. You are not at the end of your story. You are at the turn. The long, painful, character-building turn that every chosen one must walk through before the fullness of their destiny becomes visible. And you have been walking it faithfully, even when you felt like you were walking it alone. That faithfulness has been seen. Every tear that felt private was witnessed. Every act of obedience that no one applauded was recorded. Every moment you chose to stay when leaving would have been easier. That choice was counted, and the account is full. Your rise is not a maybe. It is not a distant dream that might happen if things go your way. It is a divine appointment that has already been set, already been prepared, and is already moving toward you with the same certainty that the sun moves toward the morning. You cannot stop it. The enemy cannot stop it. Your past cannot stop it. Your failures cannot stop it. Because what God has purposed does not bend to what man has broken. It does not pause for what the enemy has planted. It moves forward with the authority of the one who set it in motion before you ever drew your first breath. This is the moment you begin to believe that again. Not with the fragile hope of someone who is not sure, but with the settled confidence of someone who has walked through enough to know that the God who brought them this far does not abandon what he starts. You are standing at the threshold of the most significant chapter of your life, and you did not arrive here by accident. You arrived here because you were guided here. Because something greater than the algorithm, greater than the recommendation, greater than every distraction that tried to take your attention today, something that moves in ways the natural world cannot fully explain, made sure that you were in this exact place at this exact moment to hear exactly this. If you feel that, if something in your chest is resonating with what you are hearing right now, if there is a part of you that recognizes this moment as more than just a video, then I want you to do something. I want you to go to the comments right now and type 444. Not because it is a ritual, not because the number has magical power, but because it is your declaration. It is you saying out loud, even in a digital space, that you receive this word, that you acknowledge this moment, that you are choosing to believe, maybe for the first time in a long time, that you are not forgotten, that you are not behind, that you are chosen, and your time is now. This is where your story changes. Not tomorrow, not when the circumstances shift. Right now, in this moment, in this declaration, something is being activated in you that has been waiting for your agreement. The chosen one does not become who they are when the blessing arrives. They become who they are when they decide to believe the promise before they can see the proof. That is what you are doing right now, and heaven is watching. Heaven is moving, and what comes next is going to remind you of every reason you held on. Stay with me, because what you are about to hear is going to reach places in your life that logic alone cannot touch. You are still here, and that means something. Not everyone who starts a journey like this one stays long enough to receive what is waiting in the deeper waters. But you are still here, which tells me that what was spoken in that first moment landed somewhere real inside you, somewhere that recognized the truth of it before your mind had time to argue against it. So now we go deeper. Now we begin to look at what the test actually was, what it cost you, and why surviving it was never just about you making it through. There is a woman whose story has been passed down through centuries, not because she was born into power, not because she was given an easy path, not because the world recognized her worth from the beginning. Her story has survived because she was hidden, refined, and then revealed at the exact moment heaven needed her most. Her name before the palace, before the crown, before the moment that changed everything was Hadassah. You may know her by the name the Persian court gave her, Esther, but Hadassah is the name that tells you who she really was. It is a Hebrew name. It means myrtle tree, and the myrtle tree is not the tallest tree. It is not the most impressive tree, but it is the tree that releases its fragrance most powerfully when it is crushed. Think about that for a moment. The very thing that was meant to diminish her, the crushing, the hiding, the loss, was the very thing that activated what was inside her. And I need you to hear this, because it speaks directly to your life. The seasons that felt like they were burying you were actually pressing out of you the fragrance that heaven intended all along. You did not lose those years. You were being activated through them. Hadassah lost her parents when she was young. She grew up in the home of her older cousin Mordecai, a Jewish man living as a foreigner in a land that was not his own. She had no title. She had no social standing that the world could see. She was an orphan in exile, carrying a heritage she was instructed to keep hidden, living a quiet life that from the outside looked like it had very little promise of greatness. And yet, the hand of God was on her life in ways that were completely invisible to the eye, but absolutely precise in their intention. This is where I need to ask you something. Have you ever felt like Hadassah? Have you ever felt like you were living in a place that was not quite your home, surrounded by a culture that did not quite understand your values, carrying something inside you that you could not fully explain to the people around you? Have you ever felt like the person you truly are was somehow hidden, tucked away, waiting for a moment that seemed to take forever to arrive? Have you ever looked at your life from the outside and thought that nothing about it looked like destiny, even though something on the inside kept insisting that it was? That feeling is not confusion. That feeling is discernment. That is your spirit recognizing the pattern of divine preparation, even when your natural eyes cannot see the fullness of what is being built. Hadassah did not know she was being prepared for a throne. She did not wake up each morning with a vision of herself wearing a crown, standing before a king, speaking words that would save an entire people. She just lived faithfully in the place she had been given. She honored the guidance of Mordecai. She moved quietly through her days with integrity and grace. And in that faithfulness, in that quiet obedience, in that willingness to be unseen for a season, she was becoming exactly who she needed to be for the moment that was coming. And the moment did come. Not on her timeline. Not through the door she might have chosen. Not in the way that made sense from a human perspective. A queen was removed from her throne in a single night because she refused a command. And suddenly, there was an opening in the most powerful palace in the known world. And out of an entire kingdom, out of every woman who could have been considered, Hadassah, the orphan, The exile, the hidden one, was the one who was chosen, not because she campaigned for it, not because she pushed her way forward, but because the hand that had been on her life since before she could remember had been positioning her for this exact moment all along. You need to understand that your life has been working the same way. Every door that closed was not rejection. Every season of obscurity was not punishment. Every moment of waiting that felt like it was wasting your potential was actually protecting and perfecting something in you that needed more time before it could handle what was coming. The king does not put new wine in old wineskins, and heaven does not place a chosen one into a destiny they are not yet equipped to carry. The preparation is not the enemy of the promise. The preparation is the proof that the promise is real. When Hadassah entered the palace, she was given a year of preparation before she ever appeared before the king. A full year of oils and spices and refinement and learning. A year of becoming before a moment of appearing. And she did not rush it. She did not demand to skip to the part where she was seen. She received every part of the preparation with the same grace with which she had received every part of her difficult early life. Because something in her understood that you do not arrive at greatness. You grow into it, and growing takes the time it takes. What year of preparation are you in right now? What oils are being worked into your character that will make you ready for the room you are about to walk into? What is being refined in you in this quiet season that will make your presence undeniable when the moment of your revealing comes? Because it is coming. Just as surely as it came for Hadassah, it is coming for you. The scripture speaks to this with a precision that should settle something in your soul. Esther chapter 4 verse 14. And who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this? Those words were spoken to Hadassah by Mordecai in the moment when everything was at stake, when the weight of her calling could no longer be hidden, when the season of preparation had ended and the season of purpose had arrived. And those words are being spoken to you right now by the same spirit that moved through Mordecai's voice into Hadassah's spirit. Who knows whether you have not arrived at this exact moment in your life for such a time as this? Who knows whether every loss, every delay, every night of weeping, every morning of choosing to keep going was not the precise and intentional preparation for what you are about to step into? You are not here by accident. You were not shaped by coincidence. The specific combination of everything you have suffered, everything you have survived, everything you have learned in the hardest classrooms of your life, that combination exists nowhere else. It is uniquely yours, and it is exactly what is needed for the assignment that has your name on it. Hadassah was chosen not despite her story, but because of it. The exile taught her humility. The loss taught her dependence on something greater than herself. The hiddenness taught her to find her identity in something deeper than the world's validation. And when the moment came that required all of those things, she had them. Not because she was perfect, not because she never felt fear. She did feel fear. She said so herself. But she chose her purpose over her fear, and that choice is what heaven had been waiting for. You are being asked to make the same choice right now. Not a choice about a palace or a king or a physical throne, but a choice about whether you will believe in this moment, before the visible evidence arrives, that you were made for something significant, that the test you have been living through was not random cruelty, but intentional refinement, that the very things that tried to disqualify you are the things that have actually equipped you, that your story, with all of its complicated chapters, is not a liability, it is your authority. The chosen one does not wait to feel ready. Hadassah was afraid, when she walked toward the king's court. She fasted, she trembled, and she went anyway. Because being chosen does not mean being free from fear. It means being willing to move forward in spite of it, because the one who called you is greater than everything that stands between you and your purpose. And the one who called you has not changed his mind about you. Not after the mistakes, not after the failures, not after the seasons where you wandered. He knew all of that before he chose you, and he chose you anyway. That is not just theology, that is personal. That is the story of your life being held in the hands of a God who does not make mistakes, who does not misplace his chosen ones, who does not begin a work in a person and then abandon it halfway through. What he starts, he finishes. And he started something in you that is nowhere near finished. Stay with me, because the next thing you are about to hear is going to show you exactly how the test changes everything that comes after it. Something is shifting in you right now. You can feel it, even if you do not have the words for it yet. It is the feeling of a door that has been locked for a long time beginning to turn. It is the sensation of something that was held back starting to move forward. And it is not your imagination. It is not wishful thinking. It is the natural consequence of what happens when a chosen one begins to truly receive the truth of who they are. When the identity settles, the atmosphere changes. When belief takes root, the ground beneath your feet becomes different. Not because your circumstances have changed yet, but because you have. And that is always where the real change begins. Hadassah understood this in a way that most people never get to witness from the inside. When Mordecai's words landed in her spirit, when those piercing, clarifying, impossible to ignore words asked her whether she had come to the kingdom for such a time as this, something changed in her that no amount of external pressure could reverse. She had been living inside the question of her own purpose for years. She had carried the quiet tension of being hidden, of being more than what her circumstances suggested, of sensing a weight in her life that did not match the smallness of the space she had been asked to occupy. And in that one moment, the question was answered. Not by a vision, not by a miracle she could touch, by a word that rang true in the deepest part of who she was. And when that word landed, she did not immediately feel fearless. She did not suddenly walk forward with the confidence of someone who had never doubted. She felt the weight of it. She sat with it. She fasted with it. She asked the people around her to fast with her, because she understood that what she was being asked to carry was not something she could carry in her own strength. And that is one of the most important things you need to understand about what it means to pass the test. Passing the test does not mean you stop needing God. It means you understand more deeply than ever before just how much you need Him. The chosen one who has truly been through the fire does not emerge arrogant. They emerge dependent, deeply, powerfully, unshakably dependent on the one who brought them through. And that dependence is not weakness. That dependence is the source of the kind of strength that cannot be manufactured, cannot be performed, and cannot be taken away, because strength that comes from your own effort has limits. It runs out when the pressure exceeds your capacity. But strength that flows from the one who holds the universe together does not have a ceiling. It does not have a breaking point. It does not run dry when the situation is harder than you have ever faced before. It is the kind of strength that shows up in the moment you need it, in the measure you need it, with the precision that only a God who knows you completely could provide. When Hadassah made her decision, when she said the words that have echoed through centuries, "If I perish, I perish," she was not being reckless. She was not being dramatic. She was being precise. She was naming the thing that every chosen one eventually has to name. that there is something worth more than your own comfort, that there is a purpose worth more than your own safety, that the life you were called to live is more valuable, more meaningful, more eternally significant than the life you could protect by staying hidden. And when you reach that place, when you genuinely arrive at the understanding that your purpose is worth more than your fear, something happens in the spiritual realm that the natural world cannot fully measure. Think about where you are right now in your own story. Think about the decision that is sitting in front of you, the one you have been circling for longer than you want to admit. The step forward that you have almost taken a dozen times, but pulled back from, because the risk felt too large, the uncertainty felt too heavy, the possibility of being wrong felt too costly. I want to ask you something about that decision. What is it actually costing you to stay where you are? What is it taking from you every single day that you delay the step that you know in the deepest part of yourself you were built to take? Because staying hidden has a cost too. It is just a slower cost, a quieter one. The kind that drains you over time rather than all at once. And chosen ones were not made to be slowly drained by the life they were afraid to step into. They were made to pour themselves out fully into the purpose they were created for. The test you have been walking through has been preparing you for exactly this. Every moment of waiting taught you patience that will serve your purpose. Every moment of uncertainty taught you to trust something beyond what you can see, and that trust will anchor you when the storms of your destiny arrive. Every moment of loss taught you what truly matters, and what was only ever temporary. And every moment of being misunderstood taught you to find your validation in the only place where validation is permanent. Not in the applause of people, not in the approval of a world that did not fully understand what you were carrying, but in the settled knowledge of a God who has always seen you clearly and has always called what he sees good. Hadassah walked into the king's court without being summoned. In the culture of that time, that was not a small thing. It was an act that could have ended her life. The law was clear. No one approached the king unsummoned, not even the queen, and yet she walked forward. Not because she was reckless, not because she was naive about the risk, but because she had reached the place where the cost of staying silent was greater in her spirit than the cost of stepping forward. She had counted what it would mean for her people if she stayed hidden. She had measured the weight of her silence against the weight of her purpose, and purpose won. Your moment of stepping forward may not look like walking into a palace. It may not carry the dramatic visible stakes of Hadassah's story, but make no mistake, the spiritual stakes are just as real. Every time a chosen one steps into their purpose, every time someone who was made for more stops accepting less, every time a person who has been living in the shadows of their own fear steps forward into the light of their calling, something shifts in the atmosphere that goes far beyond what the natural eye can see. Heaven moves. Assignments are released. Blessings that have been held in waiting begin to flow. And the reversal that has been building in the background of your life begins to move into the foreground. Because passing the test changes the spiritual positioning of your life in ways that nothing else can. It is not just that good things start to happen. It is that the authority with which you move through the world changes. When you have been through the fire and come out on the other side, still holding your faith, still carrying your character, still believing in the goodness of the God who walked through it with you, you carry something in your spirit that other people can sense without being able to explain it. Hadassah had it when she walked into the throne room. There was something about her that caused the king to extend the golden scepter. Something that turned what should have been an illegal approach into a welcomed presence. And that something was not her beauty alone. It was the weight of what she had carried, the refinement of what she had been through, and the authority of the purpose that was resting on her life. The scripture says it this way. Romans chapter 5 verses 3 through 4, we also glory in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance produces character, and character produces hope. That is the sequence. That is the divine chain that has been operating in your life through every hard season. The suffering was not the end of the story. It was the beginning of a chain reaction that leads to something unshakable. Perseverance, character, hope. Not the fragile kind of hope that depends on circumstances going your way, but the deep, rooted, settled kind of hope that knows the outcome even when the middle of the story looks nothing like the ending. That is what is being built in you right now. That is what the test has been producing, and it is almost complete. Hadassah's story did not end with her stepping forward. It continued into a series of strategic, courageous, spirit-led moves that required everything the preparation had built into her. And your story is going to require the same. The courage to act when it is costly. The wisdom to move with precision when the stakes are high. The character to remain who you truly are even when power and recognition begin to arrive. Because the chosen one who is not rooted in character cannot sustain the weight of the destiny they were given. But you have been rooted. Through the losses, through the delays, through the long nights and the silent seasons, you have been rooted deeper than you know. And what is deeply rooted cannot be easily moved. You are not the same person you were when this test began. The fire changed you. Not into something lesser, into something more, into someone who has been proven, someone who has been tested and found faithful, someone who carries in their very bones the evidence of a God who does not abandon what he loves. And that person, the one you have become through everything you have survived, that is the person that heaven has been preparing for what comes next. That is the chosen one who is ready for the rise, not despite the story, because of it. What is coming for you was worth everything it cost to get here. And you are about to find out just how true that is. You have walked through fire. You have carried weight that most people would have set down long ago. You have held on to faith in seasons where faith felt like the only thing left to hold. And now, standing at the threshold of everything that has been promised over your life, I want to speak to something that you may not have considered before, something that connects the spiritual reality of who you are with the physical instrument through which your purpose must flow. Because your calling does not live in a vacuum. It lives in your mind, in the neural pathways of the brain that God designed specifically to carry the frequency of a chosen one. And what I am about to share with you is going to change the way you understand not just your spiritual life, but the very biology of your destiny. Here is something that researchers have discovered that should not surprise you at all once you hear it. Chosen ones carry a specific frequency, not just spiritually, but neurologically. Scientists who study the brain have identified a particular type of brainwave activity that shows up most powerfully in people who operate at the highest levels of creativity, insight, intuition, and breakthrough thinking. They call it gamma. And when you understand what gamma is, you will understand why the enemy has worked so hard to keep your mind clouded, distracted, overwhelmed, and exhausted. Because a chosen one operating at full cognitive frequency is one of the most unstoppable forces on the planet. Gamma brainwaves are the fastest brainwave frequency the human brain produces. They are associated with moments of sudden clarity, deep insight, the kind of thinking that connects dots no one else can see, and the experience that its researchers sometimes call the eureka moment, that flash of knowing that arrives fully formed, that solution that appears when everything else falls away. Every great breakthrough in human history, every moment of profound creative genius, every instance of someone seeing what others could not see and doing what others said could not be done, those moments are marked by gamma activity in the brain. And here is what makes this personal for you. That frequency was in you when you were born. It was part of your original design. But life, stress, trauma, chronic pressure, the kind of long-sustained difficulty that chosen ones carry through their testing seasons, all of it suppresses the brain's natural ability to access those higher frequencies. There is also another frequency that matters deeply here. It is called theta. Theta brainwaves operate at a slower rhythm, between 4 and 8 cycles per second, and they are the frequency of deep intuition, accelerated learning, creative flow, and the kind of spiritual receptivity that makes prayer feel like a two-way conversation rather than a monologue. Children operate in theta almost constantly. It is one of the reasons children learn so quickly, imagine so freely, and experience the world with a sense of wonder that most adults have lost. And the reason most adults have lost it is not because they are broken. It is because the accumulated weight of adult life, the responsibilities, the disappointments, the chronic low-grade stress of simply surviving in a difficult world, gradually pulls the brain out of theta and into higher stress frequencies that were never designed to be permanent states. So when you have been walking through a long testing season, when you have been under sustained pressure for months or years, your brain has been working harder than it was designed to work in a continuous stress state. And the result is that the very frequencies that carry your creativity, your intuition, your problem-solving capacity, and your spiritual sensitivity have been suppressed. Not destroyed, suppressed. And that distinction matters enormously, because what has been suppressed can be restored. What has been dimmed can be reignited. And the mind that has been dulled by the weight of the test can be brought back to full frequency now that the test is passed. This is where a man named Dr. James Rivers enters the story. Dr. Rivers is a neuroscientist with more than 30 years of research dedicated to one specific question. What's the difference between the brains of people who break through and the brains of people who stay stuck? He trained at MIT, one of the most rigorous scientific institutions in the world. He collaborated with researchers connected to NASA, the organization that quite literally studies what human beings are capable of at the outermost edges of possibility. And after more than 3,000 days of research, after studying thousands of subjects across every demographic and background, Dr. Rivers and his team arrived at a conclusion that bridges everything you have been hearing in this message with something you can actually do about it today. The conclusion was this: the brain can be guided back into its optimal frequency, not through years of meditation practice, not through expensive technology or pharmaceutical intervention, not through any complex skill that requires training or discipline, through sound, specifically engineered sound, frequencies delivered through audio that the brain naturally synchronizes with, a process called brainwave entrainment, which is simply the brain's innate tendency to match the frequency of what it hears. This is not a new concept. Humans have used sound to shift consciousness for thousands of years, in worship, in ceremony, in music. What Dr. Rivers did was apply the precision of modern neuroscience to that ancient understanding and produce something that works consistently, measurably, and quickly. The result is called the Genius Wave. It is a 7-minute audio track engineered with binaural beats and isochronic tones calculated to guide your brain gently but powerfully into the theta and gamma states that are your natural birthright as a chosen one. 7 minutes a day, that is all. Not an hour of meditation, not a complicated practice that requires perfect conditions. 7 minutes with a pair of headphones and the willingness to receive what has always been yours. And the reason 7 minutes is the precise time is not arbitrary. Dr. Rivers' research identified 7 minutes as the optimal window for the brain to complete the entrainment cycle without triggering the resistance that comes from longer sessions. It is enough time to shift the frequency. It is short enough to be sustainable every single day. Now I want to tell you about some of the people who have used this. Because the science matters, but the stories matter too. A woman named Sarah, a single mother and middle school teacher who had been struggling with mental fog and creative exhaustion for over 2 years, started using the Genius Wave every morning before her students arrived. Within 3 weeks, she told the team that she was solving problems in her classroom that had stumped her for months. She described feeling like a dimmer switch in her mind had been turned back up to full brightness. She said for the first time in years, she was dreaming again, not just sleeping, but actually dreaming with color and detail, and the kind of morning clarity that made her feel like herself again. A man named David, a 43-year-old engineer who had been passed over for promotion twice and was beginning to believe that his best thinking was behind him, used the Genius Wave for 60 days. At the end of those 60 days, he had submitted a project proposal that his supervisors described as the most innovative solution they had seen from their team in years. He was not just promoted, he was given a leadership role he had not even applied for. He said the difference was not just the ideas, it was the confidence, the clarity, the sense that his mind was operating at a level he had not accessed since his early career. These are not extraordinary people who were given extraordinary advantages. These are people in ordinary circumstances who gave their brains the frequency support they needed to access what was already there. Just like you. Just like the chosen one, who has been carrying more than their share of pressure ever, and deserves to have every part of themselves operating at full capacity for what comes next. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Because you are honest, and you are practical, and you have been burned before by things that promised more than they delivered. You are thinking that $39 is not nothing, and you are right. It is not nothing. It is real money, and you have worked for it, and you deserve to know that what you invested in is worth it. So let me be just as honest with you as you are being with yourself right now. This is not a miracle cure. This is not a replacement for prayer, for faith, for the work that you are called to do in the world. What it is a tool, a scientifically grounded, carefully engineered tool that helps your brain do what it was designed to do at the frequency it was designed to operate at, so that everything else in your life, your faith, your creativity, relationships, your work, your purpose, can flow through a mind that is actually clear enough to carry it. The Genius Wave normally sells for $49. Today, through the link in the pinned comment and the description below, you can access it for just $39. And every purchase comes with a 90-day money-back guarantee. 90 days. That is 3 full months to use it every day and decide for yourself whether it has made a difference. If it has not, you get every dollar back. No questions, no process, no pressure. But based on the more than 19,000 people who have already used it, with a return rate of under 4%, the likelihood is that you will not want your money back. The likelihood is that you will be one of the people who sends a message saying that something shifted. One important thing before we move forward. There are unauthorized versions of this audio circulating online. Please do not purchase from any source other than the official link in the pinned comment and the description of this video. Counterfeit versions will not carry the precise frequency calibration that makes the original effective, and you will simply be wasting your money on something that does not work. The only place to get the real thing is the link provided here. And finally, this offer at $39 is not permanent. The pricing window is limited and the number of copies available at this rate is finite. If you have been feeling the pull to do something different, to give your mind the support it needs, to step into this new season with every part of yourself operating at full capacity, do not wait. The chosen one who has passed the test deserves every tool that heaven and science together can provide, and this is one of them. There is a breath that happens after a decision, a quiet moment between the choosing and the becoming, where everything you have just received begins to settle into the deeper layers of who you are. You have heard the science, you have heard the stories, you have heard the invitation to give your mind the support it was designed to have. And now, without any abruptness, without any sharp turn in the road, we return to the place where all of this began, because the tool matters, the science matters, but the foundation beneath all of it is something that no frequency can manufacture and no research can replicate. It is the unshakable, ancient, fiercely personal faithfulness of a God who has never once taken his eyes off you. Hadassah knew this, not as a theological concept, as a lived reality, as the thing she fell back on when everything else was uncertain. When she stood at the edge of her decision, when the full weight of what she was being asked to do pressed down on her with a force that could have paralyzed her, she did not reach first for strategy. She did not calculate the odds or study the political landscape alone. She fasted. She prayed. She brought herself back into alignment with the source of everything she was and everything she was called to be. And it was from that place of deep spiritual rootedness that she moved, not from fear, not from ambition, from surrender to a purpose greater than herself. And I want you to notice something about that sequence, because it matters for your life right now. Hadassah did not fast and pray as a way of avoiding the hard thing. She fasted and prayed as a way of preparing to do the hard by thing, with the full weight of heaven behind her. There is a version of spirituality that uses prayer as an escape, as a way of staying still and calling it trust. But that was not what Hadassah modeled. She went into the presence of God and came out moving. She went in trembling and came out walking. She went in as an orphan who had survived loss and came out as a queen who was about to change the course of history for an entire people. And the transformation happened not in the throne room of the king. It happened in the secret place of her surrender. That secret place is available to you right now. In fact, it has been available to you through every single moment of the test you have been walking through. And one of the most painful misconceptions that chosen ones carry through their testing seasons is the belief that the difficulty of the season means that God has moved away, that the silence means absence, that the delay means disapproval, that the closed doors mean rejection. But Hadassah's life tells a completely different story. She was hidden in a foreign land, living under a name that was not her own, carrying a heritage she could not publicly claim. And the entire time, the hand of God was moving with such precision and such intentionality that not a single detail of her life was outside of his awareness. Not the timing of the previous queen's removal. Not the specific moment Hadassah was brought before the king. Not the night the king could not sleep and called for the records to be read aloud. Every single detail was held in the hand of the one who holds all things. And every single detail of your life has been held in that same hand. The timing of your losses, the specific nature of your struggles, the people who were placed in your path, the doors that closed and the ones that stayed open just long enough for you to walk through. None of it was random. All of it was the movement of a God who does not do coincidence, who does not waste a single experience in the life of someone he has chosen, who takes the broken pieces and the painful chapters and long, confusing middle sections and weaves them into something that, when you finally see it from the other side, will take your breath away with its precision. The anointing on your life does not cancel the process. This is one of the hardest truths for chosen ones to receive, because the anointing feels so real, the calling feels so clear, and yet the path toward it feels so long and so difficult and so different from what you imagined it would look like. You expected the anointing to accelerate everything, to open every door quickly, to move every obstacle immediately, to make the journey feel as significant as the destination. And instead, the anointing led you into a wilderness, into a waiting room, into a season of obscurity that felt like it was in direct contradiction to everything you believed you were called to. But here is what the anointing was actually doing in that wilderness. It was doing what oil does. It was penetrating. It was getting into every crack and crevice of your character. It was reaching the places that surface-level success never touches. The deep places where pride hides, where insecurity waits, where the wounds that have never been properly healed sit quietly, ready to surface at the worst possible moment if they are not addressed in the preparation season. The anointing does not skip those places. It saturates them, and that saturation is not comfortable. But it is necessary, because a chosen one who has been anointed but not processed, called but not refined, gifted but not healed, will not be able to sustain what heaven is trying to release through them. Hadassah went through a full year of preparation inside the palace before she ever stood before the king. A year of oils and spices, and learning and watching and waiting, and she did not rush it. She did not demand to skip ahead to the part where she was seen and celebrated. She received every day of preparation with the same quiet faithfulness with which she had received every day of difficulty in her earlier life. Because she understood, perhaps without being able to articulate it fully, that the preparation was not separate from the purpose. The preparation was part of the purpose. And the woman who emerged after a year of that kind of deep, intentional formation was not the same woman who walked in. She was more. She was ready. She was carrying in her very presence something that could not have been manufactured any faster than it was. You are carrying something in your presence right now that took exactly as long to build as it took. Not a day longer than necessary. Not a day wasted. Every single moment of the process was being used, and what has been built in you through it is not fragile. It is not the kind of confidence that crumbles when things get hard again, because it was built in hardness. It is not the kind of faith that requires everything to go well in order to hold, because it was formed in seasons where nothing was going well, and it held anyway. It is not the kind of purpose that depends on other people's validation, because it was confirmed in the silence, in the hiddenness, in the place where no one was watching except the one who's watching is the only watching that ultimately matters. And this is the thing about divine favor that most people do not understand until they have been through enough to see it clearly. Favor is not the absence of difficulty. Favor is the presence of God in the middle of the difficulty, turning what was meant to destroy you into what will define you. Hadassah did not have favor because she had an easy life. She had favor Because the God who chose her was present in every moment of her hard life, working details she could not see toward an outcome she could not yet imagine. And when the fullness of that favor was revealed, it was revealed not just as personal blessing. It was revealed as purpose for others. Her breakthrough was not just for her. It never is. That is the nature of the chosen one's rise. It is never only personal. When you step into what you were made for, when you walk through the door that has been held open by the faithfulness of God through your entire journey, the blessing that flows through you has a reach that extends far beyond your own life. The people who are waiting for what you carry, the lives that will be changed by the story you will tell from the other side of this season, the generations that will be shaped by the choice you make in this moment. All of them are part of why the preparation mattered so much. All of them are part of why heaven invested so deeply in your process. The scripture for this moment speaks directly to the faithfulness that has been working behind everything you have walked through. Philippians chapter 1 verse 6. He who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. That is not a suggestion. That is not a possibility. That is a declaration from the one who does not begin things he does not intend to finish. The work that was begun in you before you understood what was being built. The work that continued through every season you wanted to quit. The work that persisted through every failure and every disappointment and every moment of doubt. That work is still in motion. It has not been abandoned. It has not been paused. It is being carried forward with the same intentionality and the same power that initiated it, and it will be completed. Not because you are strong enough to carry it to the finish, but because the one who started it is. You are in the completion phase now, not the phase where everything is already finished and comfortable and clear, but the phase where the completion is in motion, where the momentum has shifted, where what was being built in secret is beginning to move toward its moment of revealing. And the chosen one who understands this does not grow impatient with the final steps of the process. They lean into them. They receive them with the same trust with which they received every earlier step, because they know that the one who has been faithful through everything that came before will not become unfaithful in the final stretch. Hadassah did not know how her story would end when she walked into the throne room. She only knew that she had been faithful to her preparation, faithful to her purpose, and faithful to the God who had placed her exactly where she was for exactly this moment. And that faithfulness was enough. It was more than enough. It was everything. And your faithfulness has been enough too. Through every hard season, through every moment of doubt, through every day, you chose to keep going when stopping would have been so much easier. Your faithfulness has been seen, recorded, and honored by the one who misses nothing. And what that faithfulness has built in you is now ready to be revealed. Stay with me, because what comes next is going to show you exactly how everything you have been equipped with is now being activated for the assignment that has your name on it. You are still here. And before we go one step further, I need to stop and acknowledge that. Because in a world that is screaming for your attention from every direction, in a season where your energy is one of the most valuable things you possess, the fact that you have stayed through everything that has been spoken in this message is not a small thing. It is a statement. It is your spirit saying that what was shared here mattered, that the words found places in you that needed to be found, that this was not just noise in a feed that never ends, but something that landed somewhere real and deep and necessary inside you. And because it landed, I want to ask you to do something right now, before you do anything else, before you scroll, before you move to the next thing, before the moment passes, I want you to press that like button right now, not later. Right now, while what you heard is still alive in your chest. That like is not just a click. It is your declaration that truth was spoken here today. It is your way of saying out loud, even without words, that this message reached me, that it mattered, that it was worth my time, that I received it and I am grateful for it. Every single like on this video tells the platform that something real is happening here, that this is not just content but a genuine word for real people in real seasons of their lives. So if this message spoke to you today, press like right now. Do it before you do anything else. Now I want to talk to you about someone in your life. You do not have to say their name out loud. Just bring them to your mind for a moment. Someone who is in the middle of a hard season right now. Someone who is carrying more than they are showing. Someone who is asking the same questions you were asking when you first pressed play on this video. Why is this so hard? Is there a plan for any of this? Does God still see me? Am I too far gone for the kind of turnaround that other people seem to get? You know exactly who I am talking about. Their face just came to your mind. Maybe it is a friend. Maybe it is a sibling. Maybe it is someone you have been worried about for months. Someone whose pain you can feel even when they are not in the room with you. That person needs this message. Not a version of it that you summarize over coffee. Not a paraphrase of what was said here. The actual message. The words as they were spoken. Because the same spirit that guided you to press play today can meet that person in the exact place they are in when they press play. And the only way they get to press play is if someone sends it to them. If someone in their life cares enough to pause for 30 seconds and share this video directly to them. I am asking you to be that person for them today. Right now, before this moment passes, share this video with the person whose face just came to your mind. Send it to them in a message. Post it on your story. Put it wherever they will see it. Because you being here today was not only for you. Part of why you were led to this message is so that you could carry it to someone who needs it and does not yet know it exists. That share is one of the most powerful spiritual acts you can perform today. Hadassah did not save her people by staying silent about what she had access to. She used her position, her voice, her willingness to move at the right moment, to bring deliverance to people who could not access it on their own. You have access to something today that someone in your life desperately needs. And sharing it costs you nothing but 30 seconds of your time. Please do not let this moment pass without doing it. Now, if you are not yet subscribed to this channel, I want to talk to you directly about that. Not as a formality, not as the thing every creator says at the end of every video, but as a genuine invitation from someone who understands what it means to need the right word at the right moment. Every week, messages go out through this channel that are built on the same foundation you have been standing on throughout this entire video. The truth that you are chosen. The truth that your suffering has a purpose. The truth that the God who began the work in you has never once considered abandoning it. Every message is crafted for the chosen one who is in a specific season of their journey, and it is designed to meet them exactly where they are. But here is the thing. If you are not subscribed, you will miss it. Not because you are not interested, but because the platform will simply not show it to you. The algorithm does not know your story. It does not know that you are a chosen one in a critical season who needs the next message at the moment it arrives. Only you know that. And subscribing is the simple, practical act of making sure that what is meant for you actually reaches you. So please, right now, click that subscribe button. And after you subscribe, click the notification bell and select all notifications. That bell is your guarantee that the next message, the one that might be speaking to the exact next chapter of what you are walking through, will find you when it arrives and not get lost in a feed you happened not to be scrolling through at the right moment. This community of chosen ones that gathers in this space is one of the most quietly extraordinary things I have witnessed. People from every background, every country, every season of life, all gathered around the same truth, that they were made for more than what they have been living, that the difficulty of their journey is not evidence of God's absence, but of their assignment's significance, that the test they have been walking through is producing something in them that is about to change, not just their own lives, but the lives of everyone connected to them. That community does not build itself. It is built by people like you who show up, who stay, who engage, who choose to be part of something rather than simply passing through it. And I want to speak to you now about something that I approach with both honesty and gratitude. This channel, these messages, the time and prayer and preparation that go into every single piece of content that is released here, all of it requires resources to sustain. Not because truth has a price tag, but because the vessel through which truth flows exists in the real world, with real responsibilities, real costs, and a real need for the kind of support that makes continued and consistent output possible. And I am deeply grateful for every person in this community who has chosen to be part of sustaining what is built here. If this channel has added genuine value to your life, if the messages that have come through this space have spoken into your journey in ways that made a real difference, then I want to invite you, with zero pressure and complete freedom, to consider supporting this work with a donation. The link is in the description below and in the pinned comment at the top of the comment section. You will see it clearly. Every contribution, whether it is small or significant, goes directly toward making sure that this content can continue to reach chosen ones who need it, toward the hours of preparation, toward the infrastructure that keeps this channel running, toward the ability to show up consistently for a community that has chosen to show up consistently for this space. Your donation is not just a financial act. It is a statement of faith in what God is doing through this platform. It is you saying, I believe this work matters. I believe it is reaching people who need it. And I want to be part of making sure it continues. And I want you to know that every single contribution is received with genuine gratitude and with prayer. Not as a transaction, as a partnership, as evidence that the community of chosen ones is not passive but active. Not just consuming, but investing, not just receiving, but giving back to the space that is given to them. Hadassah understood the principle of giving from a place of purpose rather than from a place of abundance. She did not wait until everything was safe and secure before she gave of herself. She gave in the middle of the risk. She poured out in the middle of the uncertainty. She invested everything she had into the purpose she was connected to, not because she could afford to lose it, but because she understood that some things are worth giving everything for. I am not asking you to give everything. I am asking you to give something. Whatever is on your heart, whatever feels right, whatever you are able to give freely and joyfully, because that is the only kind of giving that carries the weight of genuine love behind it. If you give today, thank you. From the deepest part of what this channel stands for, thank you. If you are not in a position to give financially right now, that is completely understood and completely honored. Your presence here, your engagement, your like, your share, your subscription, all of it is a form of giving. All of it contributes to the life of this community. And all of it is received with the same gratitude. What I want you to carry with you from this section is not a list of things you were asked to do. I want you to carry the understanding that you are part of something, that your engagement with this space is not passive consumption, but active participation in a community of people who are all walking toward the fullness of what they were made for. And communities like this one, gathered around truth, around faith, around the shared identity of the chosen one, are rare. They are worth protecting. They are worth investing in. They are worth showing up for consistently, not just on the days when you feel spiritually strong, but on the days when you need to borrow strength from the community around you. So like this video, share it with the person whose face came to your mind. Subscribe and turn on the bell. And if it is on your heart, give through the link in the description and the pinned comment below. Do all of that right now while the moment is alive. And then stay with me, because what is coming next is going to show something about the enemy's strategy that is going to change the way you understand everything you have been through. There is something that nobody told you when the attacks began. Nobody sat you down in the middle of your hardest season and explained to you why the opposition in your life had been so relentless, so specific, so perfectly aimed at the places where you were most vulnerable. Nobody explained why the setbacks seemed to arrive at the worst possible moments, why the betrayals came from the people you trusted most deeply, why the closed doors always seemed to be the ones behind which your greatest opportunities were waiting. Nobody told you that the intensities of what you were facing was not evidence of your weakness, but evidence of your worth. That the enemy does not waste precision targeting on people who pose no threat. That darkness does not deploy its most strategic weapons against lives that carry no light worth extinguishing. But I am telling you now, and I need you to receive this, not just as an encouraging idea, but as a strategic revelation that reframes everything you have been through and everything you are about to walk into. The opposition in your life was never random. It was never accidental. It was never the result of bad luck or poor timing, or the universe being indifferent to your pain. It was targeted. It was intentional. And the fact that it was targeted tells you something about yourself that you may have spent years being too afraid to fully believe. You are a threat, not to people, not to the world around you, but to the kingdom of darkness that has a vested interest in making sure that chosen ones never fully step into the authority they were given. Because a chosen one who knows who they are, who has passed through the fire of their testing season and emerged with their faith intact and their identity anchored, is one of the most disruptive forces that can exist in a broken world. Not because they are perfect, not because they have everything figured out, but because they carry in their very presence the living proof that God is faithful, that purpose is real, that the story does not end in the darkness, and that the one who calls you chosen does not abandon what he calls. That kind of living proof is dangerous to darkness, not metaphorically. Spiritually and practically dangerous, because every chosen one who rises becomes a testimony that silences the lie that God does not move, that prayer does not work, that faith is for the naive and the desperate, and the people who have not yet figured out how the world really works. Your rise does not just bless you. It dismantles a narrative that the enemy has been building in the lives of the people around you. And the enemy knows this. He knew it before you did. He knew it before you had the language for it. And that is why the attacks began so early and felt so personal. Think about Hadassah again. Think about the full scope of what she was facing when she stood at the moment of her decision. There was a man named Haman, a man who had been given significant power in the Persian court, who had constructed an entire plan to destroy not just Hadassah, but every person of her heritage in the entire kingdom. A plan that had been signed into law by the king. A plan that had a specific date attached to it. A plan that had been set in motion with the full weight of political authority behind it. And look at what that plan required in order to work. It required Hadassah to stay silent. It required her to keep her identity hidden. It required her to prioritize her own safety over her purpose. It required her to believe that she was not powerful enough to change what had been set in motion against her people. The enemy's plan for your life has the same structure. It does not require your destruction. It only requires your silence, your passivity, your agreement that you are not significant enough, not strong enough, not chosen enough to make a difference. It only requires that you stay hidden a little longer, stay in the place of obscurity a little longer, stay in the agreement that who you are is not enough for what you are facing. That is the plan, not a dramatic defeat, a quiet surrender. The kind that happens slowly, over years of accumulated discouragement, until the chosen one looks up one day and realizes they have been living a fraction of the life they were made for, not because they were destroyed, but because they were convinced to shrink. But here is what the enemy did not account for in Hadassah's story. And here is what he has not accounted for in yours. He did not account for the moment of revelation. The moment when the chosen one hears the truth of who they are spoken, with enough clarity and enough authority that it reaches the place where the agreement to shrink has been living. The moment when the word of God lands so specifically and so precisely in the spirit of the chosen one that the shrinking begins to reverse. That is what happened to Hadassah when Mordecai spoke those words. For such a time as this, something in her heard that and recognized it as the truth that had been buried under years of hiddenness and exile, and the quiet accumulation of a life lived below the level of her calling. And that is what has been happening to you throughout this message. Every word that has been spoken has been landing in the places where the enemy built his strongholds of discouragement and delay and self-doubt. And every time a word lands in one of those places with enough truth behind it, something shifts. Not just emotionally, spiritually. The agreement breaks, the stronghold loses its hold, and the chosen one begins to remember who they actually are. The scripture speaks to this with a directness that should feel like a weapon being placed in your hand. 2 Corinthians chapter 10 verse 4. The weapons we fight with are not the weapons of the world. On the contrary, they have divine power to demolish strongholds. That is the reality of what you are carrying into this next season. Not the weapons of the world, not strategy alone, not intelligence alone, not willpower alone, not the sheer force of your own determination alone. Divine power, the kind of power that does not negotiate with strongholds but demolishes them. The kind of power that does not work round the obstacles the enemy has constructed, but moves through them with an authority that the enemy has no answer for. That is what is in your hands, right now. And the chosen one who understands this does not approach the next chapter of their life with tentative, apologetic posture of someone who is hoping things might work out. They approach it with the settled, grounded, with the unshakable confidence of someone who knows that the power working through them is greater than anything that has been arranged against them. Think about what Haman's plan required to succeed. It required Hadassah to be exactly who the enemy needed her to be: passive, silent, hidden, afraid. And think about what undid that plan. Not an army, not political maneuvering alone. A woman who decided that her purpose was worth more than her fear. A woman who walked into a space she was not supposed to enter, carrying a truth that could not stay hidden any longer. and spoke with a courage that was not her own, but was flowing through her from the one who had placed her there. And in that moment, everything the enemy had constructed began to fall apart. Not gradually, suddenly, with the kind of reversal that only happens when the hand of God moves decisively on behalf of someone who has said yes to their purpose at the exact moment it cost the most. Your reversal is being constructed right now, not in the visible realm where you can see it and measure it and feel reassured by its progress. In the invisible realm where the real battles are fought and the real outcomes are determined. And the reversal that is being constructed on your behalf has been in motion for longer than you know. Every prayer you prayed in the dark was a brick. Every act of faithfulness in a season where no one was watching was a brick. Every time you chose to keep going when stopping would have been so much easier, that was a brick. And the structure that has been built from those bricks is now ready to be revealed. Not as something fragile, as something permanent, as something the enemy cannot dismantle because it was built in the secret place, in the place he could not access, in the place where only you and God were present. The enemy saw what you were becoming. He saw it before you did. And everything he deployed against you was an attempt to interrupt the becoming before it could reach completion. The betrayals were attempts to break your trust and isolate you from the community that would sustain your purpose. The financial pressures were attempts to keep your attention at the level of survival, so that you could never lift your eyes to the level of your calling. The health challenges were attempts to drain your physical capacity so that you could not carry the weight of the assignment. The relational wounds were attempts to damage your ability to love and be loved, because a chosen one who cannot receive love and cannot give it freely is a chosen one whose impact has been contained. But none of it worked, because here you are, still standing, still believing, still present in a space where the truth about your identity is being spoken over your life. The enemy threw everything he had at the becoming, and the becoming is still happening. You are still here. And that is not just survival, that is victory. That is the evidence that what God has purposed for your life is stronger than everything that has been deployed against it. And what is stronger than everything that has been deployed against it cannot be stopped. It can only be received. You were known before the attacks began. You were chosen before the opposition assembled. You were destined before the enemy had a chance to construct his plans. And the one who knew you, chose you, and destined you has not changed his assessment of your life based on what the enemy attempted. He looks at you right now and he sees exactly what he always saw. The chosen one, the one he made, the one he purposed, the one whose rise has been in motion since before the foundation of the world. And that rise cannot be stopped, not by what was, not by what is, not by anything that comes next. Stay with me, because what you are about to hear is the moment the story turns. And it is turning for you right now. You have been waiting for this moment longer than you know. Not just in the months or years of this particular season, but in a deeper, older part of yourself that has always known that the story was not finished, that the last word had not been spoken, that the chapter that felt like an ending was never actually an ending at all. And now, standing on this side of everything you have walked through, I want to speak to you about what happens next, not as a vague promise of something better, coming eventually, as a specific, precise, spiritually grounded declaration of what reversal looks like when it arrives in the life of a chosen one who has held on long enough to receive it. Because reversal is not just improvement. Reversal is not just things getting a little better after a long stretch of hard. Reversal is the complete, divine, heaven-authored turning of everything that was weaponized against you, into the very platform from which your greatest impact is launched. Reversal is when the thing that was supposed to be your burial becomes your resurrection. When the pit that was supposed to be your grave becomes the place from which your ascent begins. When the people who wrote you off become the witnesses to the very glory they tried to prevent. That is not poetic language. That is the pattern of God's faithfulness in the lives of His chosen ones throughout history. And it is the pattern that is being activated in your life right now. Hadassah lived this pattern in a way that should take your breath away when you consider the full scope of it. Haman, the man who had constructed the plan to destroy her people, who had built a gallows specifically intended for Mordecai, who had accumulated power and position and political influence for the express purpose of eliminating those whom God had chosen, that man did not just fail. He was undone by the very structure he had built. He was hung on the gallows he had erected for someone else. The position he had sought to use for destruction became the position that was given to Mordecai. The decree he had engineered against the chosen ones was reversed by the same authority that had issued it. And Hadassah, the orphan, the exile, the hidden one, the woman who had spent years living below the visible level of her purpose, stood at the center of the most complete and stunning reversal in the recorded history of her people. That is the God you serve. Not a God who simply patches things up and helps you manage the damage. A God who reverses. A God who takes the full weight of everything that was arranged against you and turns it with a precision and a completeness that leaves no room for the enemy to claim partial credit for what remains. A God who does not just restore what was lost but multiplies what was taken and adds to it what was promised. A God whose reversals are so complete, so thorough, so beyond what human strategy could have engineered that the only explanation available to anyone watching is the same one that has been the explanation throughout all of history. God did this. And God is doing this for you, right now, in ways you cannot yet fully see, in the invisible realm where the real decisions are made and the real outcomes are set in motion. The reversal that belongs to your story is not a future possibility that depends on everything going right from this point forward. It is a present reality that is already in motion, already being constructed, already moving toward the moment of its visible manifestation with the same certainty and the same momentum that brought every other divine reversal in history to its appointed moment of revelation. But here is what I need you to understand about how reversal works in the life of a chosen one. It does not arrive to find you unchanged. It arrives to find you ready. And ready does not mean perfect. Ready does not mean you have resolved every doubt and healed every wound and figured out every answer. Ready means that you have walked through enough of the process that the reversal can land in you without breaking you, that the blessing can be received without being wasted, that the elevation can be sustained without being corrupted, that the platform can be used for the purpose it was always intended for, rather than being consumed by the unprocessed wounds of a person who was not yet ready to carry it. Hadassah was ready when her moment came, not because she was fearless, not because she was without complexity or pain or the accumulated weight of everything she had carried, but because everything she had walked through had built in her exactly the character that the moment required. The humility to use power without being consumed by it. The wisdom to navigate a complex situation without losing her integrity. The compassion to advocate for others even when her own safety was not yet secured. The faith to move forward when the outcome was not guaranteed. All of that was built in the preparation. All of that was the product of the process. And all of it was waiting to be deployed in the moment that heaven had been holding in reserve for her since before she was born. Your character has been built the same way, through the same kind of fires, through the same kind of long, quiet, unglamorous seasons of becoming. And the reversal that is coming for you is going to require every single thing that those seasons produced. The patience, the resilience, the wisdom that only comes from having navigated deep difficulty with your integrity intact. The compassion that only develops in people who have genuinely suffered. The authority that only rests on shoulders that have been refined by fire. All of it is going to be needed, and all of it has been produced in you. Not perfectly, but sufficiently, exactly enough for the moment that is coming. I want to speak now to the silence in your story, the places where you cried and no one heard, the moments where you stood in the rubble of something you had built and believed in and poured yourself into, and you had to keep your composure because there was no one around who could hold the weight of how broken you actually felt. The nights where you reached a level of desperation that you have never told anyone about because you were afraid of what it would mean for people to know how close you came to the edge. Those moments were witnessed, every single one of them. Not just observed from a distance, but entered into by a God who does not watch his chosen ones suffer from afar. A God who is present in the pain in a way that the pain itself often prevents us from feeling, but that the other side of the pain confirms unmistakably. And those witnessed moments, those unseen acts of perseverance, those private choices to hold on when letting go would have been so much easier, they are the credentials of your reversal. They are the proof that what is coming was not given lightly, that it was not handed to someone who had not paid a price to be ready for it, that the glory that is about to be revealed in your life was earned in the secret place, in the dark season, in the long night that is now finally giving way to the morning that was always coming. The scripture for this moment speaks with a power that should settle into your bones and stay there. Romans chapter 8, verse 18. I consider that our present sufferings are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us. Not just around you, not just in your circumstances, in you. The glory that is coming is not just an external change in your situation. It is a revelation of what has been formed inside you through everything you have been through. It is the unveiling of the chosen one who was being shaped in the hidden place. And when it is revealed, when the fullness of what God has been building in you begins to become visible to the world around you, it will not just be impressive, it will be undeniable. It will carry the weight of everything that produced it. And the people who watch it happen will not be able to attribute it to talent or timing or luck. They will only be able to say, something greater than this person is at work in their life. That is the testimony that is being written in your story right now. Not by you alone, by the one who chose you, who has been faithful to you, who has never once considered abandoning the work he began in you, and who is now moving the final pieces of a plan that has been in motion since before you drew your first breath into their appointed positions. The reversal is not coming. In the deepest spiritual sense, it is already here, already signed, already sealed, already moving toward you with the full authority of the one who set it in motion. Now I want to ask you to do something that is less about ritual and more about agreement, a declaration that you are receiving what has been spoken over your life today, that you are not just listening to a message but responding to a moment. Type in the comments right now, "Crown me, Lord." Just those 3 words, "Crown me, Lord." Let those words be your throne room declaration, your acknowledgement that you are not asking for something you do not deserve, but claiming something that was prepared for you before you were born. Because the chosen one does not wait to be crowned by the world. They present themselves before the King, who holds the only crown that truly matters. And they say with every ounce of faith they have left, "Crown me, Lord. I have walked through the fire. I have held on through the night. I am still here, and I am ready." Type it now. Crown me, Lord, and mean it with everything you have walked through to get to this moment, because this moment belongs to you. And what is coming next is going to show you just how completely God has been faithful to every single promise He has ever made over your life. There is a moment in every chosen one's journey where the long arc of everything they have walked through finally becomes visible in its entirety. Not just the hard parts, not just the breakthrough moments, the whole arc, the losses and the lessons, the delays and the developments, the seasons of hiddenness and the slow, quiet, unglamorous work of becoming that happened in those seasons. And when that arc becomes visible, when you can finally see the full shape of the journey from a vantage point high enough to take it all in, something happens in the spirit that is difficult to put into words but impossible to miss when it arrives. It is the feeling of a story making sense, of a life revealing its meaning, of the hand that has been present through every chapter finally becoming unmistakably visible in the pattern of all of them together. You are approaching that vantage point right now, not because the journey is over, but because you have walked far enough through it, survived enough of it, been faithful through enough of it, that the shape of what God has been doing is beginning to come into focus in a way that it could not when you were in the deepest and darkest parts of the process. And what is coming into focus is not a story of random suffering that happened to produce some good outcomes. It is a story of intentional, precise, divinely orchestrated preparation that has been moving toward a specific and glorious destination from the very beginning, your beginning. Before the first breath, before the first word, before the first moment of the first chapter of the life you have been living, Hadassah's story had a completion. Not a comfortable one, not a simple one, but a complete one. After she stepped forward, after she made the request that saved her people, after Haman's plan was reversed and Mordecai was elevated, and the decree that had been signed against the chosen ones was countered by a new decree that gave them the right to defend themselves, there was a celebration, a feast, a moment of communal joy that was so significant, so historically weighty, that it was established as an annual observance for generations to come. The Feast of Purim. A celebration not just of what had been survived, but of what had been revealed through the survival. That the hand of God had been present in every detail. That the hiddenness had been purposeful. That the orphan had been a queen in waiting all along. And that the God who had chosen her had never once taken His eyes off the story He was writing through her life. Your celebration is coming. Your feast is being prepared, not as a metaphor, as a real, tangible, visible, undeniable season of joy and fruitfulness, and the kind of flourishing that silences every voice that ever suggested your story was heading somewhere lesser than this. And that celebration is not going to be a quiet, private thing that only you can see. It is going to be visible. It is going to have witnesses. It is going to reach people who have been watching your journey and wondering how it was going to resolve, and it is going to give them something they did not expect out. Not just relief that things worked out for you, but faith. The kind of faith that is ignited when people witness a reversal so complete, so clearly beyond human engineering, that the only reasonable response is to believe that the God who did it for you might actually be able to do something similar in their own lives. That is the reach of your testimony. That is why the enemy worked so hard to prevent your rise. Not just because of what your rise means for you, but because of what your testimony is going to do in the lives of every person who witnesses it. Every chosen one who rises carries with them not just their own breakthrough, but the seed of breakthrough for everyone who sees it, and allows themselves to believe that if God did it for that person, He can do it for me. Your story is not just your story. It is a weapon of faith in the hands of everyone who will hear it. And this is why completion matters so much. Not just reaching the breakthrough, but walking fully through the final steps of the process with the same faithfulness with which you walked through the earlier ones. Because the completion of a chosen one's journey is not just about the destination. It is about the character with which they arrive at it. Hadassah did not become careless in the final chapters of her story. She did not become arrogant when the power shifted in her favor. She continued to move with the same humility, the same dependence on God, the same care for the people around her that had marked every earlier phase of her journey. And that continuity of character is what made her legacy not just impressive, but enduring. Not just a historical moment, but a generational touchstone that is still being read, still being studied, still being drawn from thousands of years after her story was completed. Your legacy is being written right now, in the choices you are making in this season, in the way you are handling the end of the test, in the grace with which you are moving into the completion of what God has been building. And I want to speak to you about something very specific regarding this phase of the journey, because it is a phase where chosen ones sometimes stumble in ways they did not stumble in the harder earlier phases. The phase of receiving, the phase where the blessing begins to arrive, where the doors begin to open, where the recognition begins to come, where the things that were promised start to become visible and tangible and real. That phase requires a particular kind of spiritual that the hard seasons actually prepared you for, but that can still catch you off guard if you are not intentional about maintaining it. The discipline of receiving with open hands, of holding the blessing without clutching it, of enjoying the fruitfulness without building your identity on it, of being grateful without becoming entitled, of using the platform without being consumed by it. These are the disciplines of the chosen one in the season of their fulfillment. And they are not instinctive. They are cultivated. They are the product of a relationship with God that is so deep and so primary that no amount of external success can displace it from its position at the center of everything you are. Hadassah maintained that relationship, even in the palace, even with the crown, even with the power and the position and the influence that came with her elevation. She did not forget who she was before the throne room. She did not distance herself from Mordecai, the one who had faithfully spoken truth into her life through every season. She did not abandon the identity that had been formed in the hidden years in exchange for the identity that the palace offered. She remained Hadassah even when the world was calling her Esther. She remained the chosen one who was chosen by God, even when she was being celebrated as the queen who was chosen by a king. And that rootedness is what allowed her elevation to be sustainable, what allowed her impact to be lasting, what allowed her story to be complete rather than just impressive. Your elevation is going to be sustainable too, because the roots that have been grown in you through this long process go deeper than the storms that are coming can reach. The character that has been formed in you is not a performance that will crack under pressure. It is a reality that was built in pressure and has already proven that it holds. And the relationship with God that carried you through the darkest chapters of your journey is going to become less necessary when the brighter chapters arrive. it is going to become more precious. Because the chosen one who has been through the fire knows in a way that comfortable people never quite grasp just how much they need the one who walked through the fire with them. The scripture for this moment speaks to the faithfulness of God across every season, the faithfulness that has been the constant beneath every variable of your journey. Lamentations chapter 3 verses 22 through 23. Because of the Lord's great love we are not consumed, for his compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. New every morning, not just in the good seasons. New every morning in the wilderness seasons. New every morning in the exile. New every morning in the hiddenness. New every morning in the long, quiet, unglamorous seasons of becoming, when there was no visible evidence that anything was moving, and yet the compassions were new. The faithfulness was present, and the hand that holds the story was never for a single moment relaxed in its grip on your life. That faithfulness is what has brought you to this moment. Not your perfection, not your strength, not your ability to hold it together. The faithfulness of a God who decided before the foundation of the world that you were worth choosing, worth refining, worth walking through the fire with, worth bringing all the way through to the completion of everything he purposed for your life. And that same faithfulness that carried you through every earlier chapter is the faithfulness that is carrying you into this final turn of the journey, this place of completion, this moment where everything that was hidden is being revealed and everything that was promised is beginning to arrive. Hadassah could not have written the story she lived. No amount of human wisdom or strategy or ambition could have engineered the specific sequence of events that brought an orphan from exile to a throne to the salvation of an entire people. It required something beyond human capacity. It required the movement of a God who sees the end from the beginning and who works in the middle of history, in the middle of ordinary human lives, with a precision and a love that leaves no detail unattended. Your story could not have been written by you either. The specific sequence of everything you have walked through, the losses that produced exactly the wisdom your purpose requires, the delays that produced exactly the character your calling demands, the hiddenness that produced exactly the humility your elevation will need, none of that was engineered by human hands. It was authored by the same one who authored Hadassah's story, by the same faithfulness that was new every morning over her. Life and is new every morning over yours. And what he authors, he completes. Not halfway, not almost, fully, with the same intentionality and the same love and the same absolute certainty of outcome that marked every earlier chapter. The completion of your story is as sure as the faithfulness that has carried every chapter of it this far. And that faithfulness has never once failed you. Not in the darkest moment, not in the longest night, not in the season when you felt most alone and most forgotten and most uncertain that any of this was going anywhere. It was going here. It was always going here, to this moment, to this threshold, to this place where the chosen one who has passed the test stands at the edge of everything that was promised and begins to understand, with a clarity that could only come from having walked the whole journey, that every single step of it was worth it, that the God who chose you knew exactly what he was doing, that the story he has been writing in your life is one of the most beautiful things you have ever been part of, and that it is not finished yet. The best chapter is still being written, and you are the one he chose to live it. You made it. Not just to the end of this message, to the end of the test, to the threshold of the life that has been waiting for you on the other side of everything you have walked through. And I want you to sit in that for just a moment before we close. Not rush past it. Not immediately think about what comes next. Just sit in the reality of where you are right now. You are standing at the beginning of something that the enemy spent years trying to prevent. You are breathing the air of a season that your faithfulness purchased at a price that was real and costly, and seen by the one who counts the cost of every chosen one's journey. You are here after everything. You are still here. And that is not a small thing. That is the whole thing. Think about where this message found you when it began. Think about the questions that were sitting in your chest when you first pressed play, the doubts that had been living in the back of your mind for longer than you wanted to admit, the weariness that had settled into your bones from carrying so much for so long, the quiet, persistent fear that maybe the story was not going where you had believed it was going. And now, think about where you are sitting as these final words are being spoken. Over your life, something has shifted. Not everything has changed yet in the visible world around you, but something has shifted in you. In the way you are holding your story, in the way you are seeing your past, in the way you are facing what is ahead. And that shift is not the end of the work. It is the beginning of the release. Hadassah stood in the throne room of a king, but before that throne room, before that moment of her revealing, before the crown and the position and the platform that changed the course of history for her entire people, she stood in a much quieter place. She stood in the place of surrender, in the place of prayer, in the place where she brought every part of herself before the God who had chosen her and said, "I cannot do this without you. I have never been able to do this without you, and I do not want to." Because that surrender was not weakness. That surrender was the source of everything that followed. And I want to bring you to that same place right now. Not as a religious formality, as a genuine, personal, heartfelt moment between you and the God who has been with you through every chapter of this journey. Would you pray with me right now? Not a complicated prayer, not a performance. Just a conversation between a chosen one and the God who chose them. Wherever you are, whatever you are doing, just bring your heart to this moment and let these words be yours. Father, I come to you at the end of a long road, a road that was harder than I expected and longer than I planned and more costly than I knew when I started walking it. But I am here, and the fact that I am here is not my doing. It is yours. You kept me when I could not keep myself. You held on when I wanted to let go. You were present in every season when I felt most alone. And I want to say thank you. Not a formal thank you, a real one. From the deepest part of a heart that has been through enough to know that your faithfulness is not just a doctrine. It is the most real thing I have ever experienced. I receive what you have spoken over my life today. I receive the truth that I am chosen, that the test is passed, that what you began in me you are faithful to complete. I receive the reversal that is coming. I receive the season of fruitfulness that has been prepared. I receive the crown that was never about my perfection but always about your purpose. And I choose to walk into what is next not in my own strength but in yours. Not in my own wisdom but in yours. Not in my own understanding, but in yours. Lead me, Lord. I trust you with every chapter that is still to come, and I believe, with everything I have held on to through everything I have walked through, that the best is still ahead. In your name, amen. If you prayed that prayer, something was released in the spiritual realm that is already moving on your behalf. Words spoken from a genuine heart to a faithful God do not return empty. They land, they activate, they set things in motion that the natural eye cannot yet see, but that the spirit of the chosen one can already sense beginning to move. And what is moving on your behalf right now is moving with the full weight of a promise that was made before you were born and has been upheld through every moment of your life, without a single exception. I want to speak one final declaration over you before we close. And I want you to receive it not as the words of a voice on a screen, but as the word of a God who knows your story, knows the price you paid to get to this moment, and is speaking directly into the deepest part of who you are. You are chosen, not because you are perfect, not because you never doubted, not because your journey has been clean and uncomplicated and easy to explain. You are chosen because the one who does the choosing saw something in you before you could see it in yourself and decided that it was worth everything the process would cost. You are chosen because the calling on your life is real and specific and irreplaceable, and the world needs what is in you in a way that cannot be met by anyone else. You are chosen because the God who never makes mistakes made you on purpose, for a purpose, with a precision of love that no human language can fully capture. You passed the test, not because you were the strongest or the most gifted or the most spiritually mature. You passed because you held on, because you chose faith when doubt was easier, because you kept moving when stopping would have been so understandable, because something in you refused to surrender the promise even when every external circumstance was screaming that the promise was not real. That refusal was not stubbornness. That was the mark of the chosen one. That was the evidence of a grace working in you that was greater than everything working against you. And now your divine rise begins, not as a metaphor, as the lived reality that is already unfolding in the invisible realm and is moving toward full visible manifestation with the same certainty that the dawn moves toward the horizon. You cannot stop it. The enemy cannot stop it. Your past cannot stop it. Nothing that was said about you, done to you, taken from you, or spoken against you can stop what God has set for motion for the life of the chosen one who passed the test and is now standing at the threshold of everything that was promised. Walk through that threshold. Walk through it with your head up and your faith intact, and your eyes fixed on the one who placed it before you. Walk through it knowing that you are not alone, that you have never been alone, that the hand that has been on your life since before your first breath is the same hand that is opening what is ahead of you, and will be the same hand that sustains you through every chapter that follows. Walk through it as who you truly are, not the version of yourself that the hard seasons tried to convince you was all you were. The full version, the chosen one, the one who was made for this moment, refined for this season, and released into this rise by the faithfulness of a God who does not make mistakes and does not abandon what he loves. If this message has spoken into your life today, if something in what was shared here reached a place that needed to be reached, I want to ask you one more time to press that like button and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Your share today could be the thing that keeps someone else going through their darkest night. It could be the word that arrives at exactly the right moment for someone who was beginning to believe that their story was not going anywhere. Be the Mordecai for someone else today. Speak the right word by sending the right message. Subscribe to this channel if you have not yet done so, and turn on the notification bell so that every message that is released here finds you at the moment it was meant for you. This community of chosen ones is one of the most precious things I have the privilege of being part of, and your presence in it matters more than you know. And if this channel has blessed you, if these messages have been a source of strength and truth and genuine spiritual nourishment in your journey, please consider supporting the work with a donation through the link in the description and in the pinned comment below. Every gift, regardless of its size, is an investment in the continued reaching of chosen ones who are still out there in the dark. Stay still in the middle of their test, still needing to hear that they are not forgotten and that their rise is real. You are the reason this exists, and you are the reason it will continue. Go now into the season that is waiting for you. Go as who you truly are. Go with the full weight of heaven behind you. And never forget, you passed the test. Your divine rise begins now.